Why do tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons resonate so deeply with players on the autism spectrum? How can storytelling, character roleplay, and a good session of dice rolling help build confidence, social skills, and genuine connection, whether you're autistic or not? YouTuber, spokesman, and lifelong gamer Ron Desi is going to share how he leads sessions of Dungeons and Dragons for young autistic men in ways that are safe, empowering, and fun. Whether you're a parent, a player, or just curious about the power of games, this conversation will unlock how role-playing games bring community, creativity, and growth. Let's go make your claim to game. How did you get in to Dungeons and Dragons? How did you get into tabletop role playing? Like, why is this so much fun, and why do you spend time on it?
So that's a good question, Clint. So I'll try to keep this as short as possible. So basically,
keep it as long as possible. That's okay.
As long
too.
as possible. No, I'll do that then. So really, what it was about was back in the 80s. I'm 52, so we're talking about 80 something around that time frame during I don't know if you remember this, but I probably a lot of your viewers and listeners will, the Satanic Panic, or you probably have heard of it.
Oh yeah.
It was really in the height of that. And ironically, I went to Catholic school, and you would think that a Catholic school would look at the Satanic Panic and everything going on and saying, we'll never have that in our school. Nope. They had a D&D club. And so at this Catholic school I went to, they had a D&D club, and it was the 8th grade teacher who was the dungeon master. And that's kind of when I got into it. And it was so much fun. I loved it, played it for years up until like high school. And then kind of things got different. Girls became a priority over Dungeons and Dragons, and, all the stuff that, adolescent boys do. Hey, girls! So that kind of took a back seat. And then life got busy, but I always enjoyed D&D. I remember I read all the Drizzt books, Drizzt or Drizzt, I don't know how to pronounce them, but the Forgotten Realms, the Dark Elf with Brunor Battlehammer, and all the other ones, Katie Bree. And I remember reading all those books.
The
Dragonlance,
Drow. That's the name.
The Drow.
Right?
That's right. The Drow.
Yeah.
He was a good Drow, even though they were evil in the monster manual kind of thing. And I remember I was, even as up until like 30 years old, I was reading all those books, into it, but never really thought I'd get back into D&D. And it was about, I guess, probably about a year ago. Actually, it was about a year ago, because a Facebook post came up when I said I was looking to play again. I read a book called Taming the Dragon, I think it was. I always can't remember what it is, but Taming the Dragon or something like that. And it was about the history of Dungeons and Dragons, stuff that I never heard of before, about Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, and they had this struggle. I mean, it was pretty fascinating how, we almost lost D&D for, it almost crumbled back, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s, and it would have disappeared, whatever, if I think it was Wizards of the Coast didn't purchase them. I mean, they had a lot of business issues. So anyway, long story short, that got me back into the fire was lit again. And so I went into trying to find a group. And that right there, let me tell you, Clint, trying to find a group is the hardest dragon to slay in Dungeons and Dragons as an adult, as a working adult who has, kids, and you got, all these other things to go to. Trying to coordinate another group of adults is terrible kind of thing. So,
yeah.
And I'll even say to this day, I still haven't found a group to play as a player. I'm looking, but everyone's schedules are all different. So I'm still looking, but anyway, so that was kind of like the history of how I got back into D&D. It was always a part of my life, like a thread throughout. And it's like at the beginning, it was heavy as I played as a child, and then up through high school, then I stopped, but that thread was still there with the books I used to read. And now it's kind of that spark is there. And I thought to myself back in November, I thought, well, if I can't play, at least I can be become part of the hobby. I could become part of the universe by starting a YouTube channel. So I thought, here I am who hasn't played in forever. Who's going to listen to me about Dungeons and Dragons? And I thought, well, what if it's about not necessarily how to play or I'm an expert, but it's just, here's me as a 50-year-old newbie to the whole thing, getting back into it and really trying to understand what it's all about, kind of a learning process, understanding and teaching, not teaching, it's a bad word, and kind of conveying what it's like to live the D&D lifestyle kind of thing. And so that's kind of what the channel is all about, Dungeon Noob. And so that's where I am now, and I'm still looking for a group. And I know we're going to talk a little bit later about the group that I did start for an institute called Kennedy Krieger, where I'm the dungeon master. But, but yeah, that's kind of the long, short history of it all.
Yeah, it's so true when it comes to starting a group as an adult, scheduling. And if you go on any Reddit, if you go on any forum, if you watch anybody talk about what is the hardest thing about managing a group, it is the scheduling.
It is. And I even did one of my first videos that I did for my channel was how to find a group. Yeah. And, they're all great ideas. But when it comes down to it, there's a kind of a bit of persistency and luck involved. Kind of thing. But yeah, and I kind of say it's the biggest dragon that you have to slay in D&D as an adult. So,
well, and you mentioned that you started young, right? You started in 8th grade ish at your Catholic school. So, you're currently, and this is the group that we were alluding to earlier, was you started a game and volunteering, running games for young adults, specifically young adults with autism. How did that come about? How did you get that group started, and how has it evolved over the past couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it kind of fell out of the sky, to be completely honest with you. So yeah, there's an institute called Kennedy Krieger, and they're an institute that helps children and young adults who have learning differences, neurodiversity differences, that type of thing, whether it's autism or what have you. And so even though I love where I live, I like getting out of the house. And I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I'm a professional spokesperson by trade. So I'm always in my basement studio, 50% of the day because I'm recording videos for clients. So in the morning hours, I go to Panera. There's a Panera near where I live. And I've kind of become a fixture there because I'm there every single morning, literally almost Monday through Sunday. It's like 7 days a week. I get there around 7 o'clock and I leave around 11, 12. And in that time, this group from Kennedy Krieger, a group of 4 guys who are probably between the ages of like 18 and 21, and their case manager would come in to the cafe in the morning. And the way the structure is there's this one cool part of it where it's like this box and it's kind of like a window. So it's kind of like a windowed office. It's really nice. And it's kind of secluded from the rest of the restaurant, which I like. So these guys come in and they prepare for whatever they're going to do in the morning. The case manager does emails. They're all talking and different things like that. And I just started talking to them. I just started, asking them what they were doing. So we became friends, just what friends do, what movies do you like and that kind of thing. And they're a great group of guys. Well, one day I pulled out my monster manual, and I have 2, the 2014 and the 2025 monster manual, and put it on the standing desk that I occupy there, so to speak. And I was preparing for like a video or a few shorts or whatever for the YouTube channel. And they looked at it and they're like, "What's that?" And so I gave it to them. And when I gave it to them, their eyes lit up. They were like, "What's this?" They were looking at all the monsters. And of course, D&D is known for its artwork. That's like quintessential D&D. And they just love like pouring over and asking questions about the monsters and whatever. And they were like, "Can we play one day?" And this kind of thing. So I got to thinking, I don't know, maybe we can. So I talked to the case manager who put me in contact with someone at the Institute, who then, I contacted that person, went through all the, the stuff that you have to go through to become a volunteer. And now every Monday, in fact, today we're recording this on a Monday at 12:30 today, I go to a place near us called the Game Haven, and we play an hour of Dungeons and Dragons. And it's awesome because it's great because it helps me be a part of the game. It helps me, as the dungeon master, I have no idea what I'm doing being a newbie to this, but I've learned through the process of, how to, do the saving throws and, all of the stuff that you need to do as a dungeon master and kind of run that game with these individuals. And they absolutely love it. And so that's kind of the origin story of that. And it's something that's, it's great for them. I feel like I'm giving back to the community. They're having fun. I'm having fun. It's kind of like a win-win for everyone involved, really.
Is the Game Haven a store? Is it a restaurant?
Yeah.
Like gaming restaurant?
Yeah. Game Haven is a game store. They primarily, it's like they have like tables everywhere, and it's opened pretty much 7 days a week, and people can come in and play everything from Magic the Gathering to Pokemon to Dungeons and Dragons to like every friend of mine who's a professional dungeon master who I met on this whole journey, through getting back into D&D. She runs one-shots I think it's like the first Saturday every month. And so I played a couple one-shots, and those were a lot of fun. So yeah, the Game Haven is it's a game store where you can kind of play different kinds of games. They have board games set up. They have tournaments. They have all kinds of different things. They have Adventure League nights for D&D. They have Pokemon tournaments, Magic Gathering tournaments, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. We should give him a shout out into the episode. We'll put a link to the Game Haven. Thank you for hosting Ron every Monday.
Exactly. Hosting us with the Kennedy Kruger guys. And they're great. The staff is awesome there. And that's the thing about local game stores is everyone thinks about, talk about Amazon, and you talk about, and Amazon is easy, I'll admit. But at the same time, you have these game stores, and you go in there and you ask a question, and they know exactly, the answer. Or if they don't know, they'll look it up for you. And it's a great thing. So I think everyone should just, make sure, rather than if you're going to buy any kind of gaming paraphernalia, try your local game shop before you get to Amazon, support the local business kind of thing.
Yeah. And, local game stores are a great place to find groups. You mentioned that like once a month, there's one shots that are being run. Well, a one shot adventure that happens once and then it's done. Yep. The characters may be done, but the people you're playing with may show up on a regular basis.
That's right. Yeah. And that's cool part about one shots is that, the person I know, shout out to Jay, she's a great dungeon master. And she's actually, it's funny because I know we talked offline about, doing your own thing and, what's that like in terms of being maybe teaching people how to play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Well, she's a professional dungeon master, and I'm helping her kind of get that off the ground. And they hire her to come to the Game Haven, and she runs these one shots. And it's cool because she runs through like 5 different one shots. And so, people come in and you notice that they're some of the same people, and other people kind of circle in and out. But then, the whole point of Dungeons and Dragons for me anyway, is the social aspect of things. And I think that that's critical, whether it's D&D or any other kind of tabletop role-playing game, is that there's that social aspect that people often overlook. And I think that that's something that's awesome, in today's day and age where you have everyone glued to their screens. Here you have, a table full of people who have no cell phones, and they're just in the moment, playing this game and acting out these characters and killing, goblins and whatever else it might be. So, yeah.
Side note, I have a friend who's one of their parents has dementia, Alzheimer's, and one of the ways to combat those kind of mental illnesses is social interaction. That is one of the number one ways to ward off, take away the isolation, bring a little community in. And it's amazing how we're just built. Our brains are built to flourish under that kind of environment.
Yeah, now, you're right about there. There's this one, and I hope you don't mind me going off on a tangent.
Go off on a tangent. It's great.
Causing the timeline to skew off into an alternate tangent.
When I was getting back into the whole Dungeons and Dragons, I got on YouTube and was just kind of immersing myself in lots of different videos. And there's this one documentary, and we could put a link to it in the show notes. And it was something about slaying your dragons or something like that. And it was about the resurgence of Dungeons and Dragons, but they were also talking about how critical it's been. Like they've actually done research, like scientific studies and peer-reviewed journals, that individuals with learning differences, learning disabilities, people with Alzheimer's, people who have, depression. In fact, there's this one where Matt Mercer, who is the DM for Critical Role, a person was interviewing him and said, I want to play for you a clip of someone who you helped. And he's like, okay. So they played this clip, and the individual, this guy, was literally on the brink of suicide, literally. And he was watching Critical Role, got into Dungeons and Dragons, starting having social interactions with individuals. And he's like, if I didn't come across Critical Role and Dungeons and Dragons, he's like, I wouldn't be here. And like Matt Mercer was tearing up in the whole bit. And I think these games, these tabletop role-playing games, I think, when we were in the 80s, it was for dorks in the basement kind of thing. And I think it's grown up to the point where now I think people understand that it's a lot more than that. It's more than just, a game people play. It's truly a way that you can interact, that social interaction that you get. And these role-playing games, you're accessing parts of your brain that you usually don't access, critical thinking and puzzle solving and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to bring that up since you mentioned about, the social interaction is so important for individuals who, have Alzheimer's and et cetera.
Well, and RPG therapy has become a thing,
Yeah.
Very qualified counselors and mental health professionals have started, and maybe they've used it for many years, but I've started hearing that they use it as a way to help people go through emotional experiences that were traumatic in their life. And otherwise they would have never processed it. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's just, not to go too personal, but like, it's one of those things. Like I started going to therapy, which I think everyone should do.
I also go to therapy. You're in good company.
It's one of those, I'm glad the stigma has kind of gone away. And, for a long time, it's almost like finding a D&D group. It's trying to find a therapist that kind of matched your personality. It's almost like dating, trying to find someone. Yeah. And I finally found someone, and we were going through it, and I won't go all the details, but I was talking to this person, and I made a D&D, and she was like, and I was explaining, and she said, well, what you're describing is kind of like a rogue. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So it was interesting because she was even pulling in parts of D&D, which made it, I was like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense now, kind of thing. So, it is interesting how you can take those pieces of it and apply it to your own life, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely changed my life. Before I knew about Dungeons and Dragons, I learned about it in 2015. Like, that's how new I am to the hobby. And, I've learned a lot of my history about it and a lot of the things because I dug into it. I was like so into it. Yeah. But I just feel like I've been missing out for years. I'm only 10 years in, and it's wonderful. It's so cool. The relationships that I've gotten to make.
Now, question, do you play have you found a group by chance, either online or in person?
It's been back and forth. So I am usually the forever GM. It's kind of like, if you want it, you got to run it. And so I've had several groups. I had one that used to physically come to my house before COVID, and we would meet once a month. We'd meet once a month for an adventure that I found on the DM's Guild, kind of connected to Drive Through RPG. MT Black was the author of the adventure, and it was kind of a mixture between fantasy and sci-fi. So it was like cool. We were in a fantasy world, but there were remnants of like, hey, there could be some advanced alien technology happening here.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
We never pulled out the blasters or the lightsabers, but still really fun. And then COVID dissolved that, right? Because nobody could be around one another. So from there, I moved online, and I've had groups that go for stints of maybe like 6 to 7 weeks. But finding that forever, 50-year group, I know it hasn't been around 50 years, but that group that just goes on forever, I'm still looking.
Yeah, same here. It's like there's this romantic fantasy of finding this group, and you get together with these great friends, and it's like you play, and like, when I'm 75 years old, if I get to that point in my life, I'm still playing D&D with this group kind of thing. Yeah. It's like, that's what I'm looking for. I don't know if that's possible, but that's what I'm looking for. And I think it sounds like you are too. So yeah.
I told my wife, my dream is that one day when I retire, I will just go to my local game shop and I will volunteer for free, running all the games I've ever wanted for anybody who wants to join. That would be living the life.
That would be. It's ironic. My friend Jay, who's the professional DM, she's trying to make that work now. She's a teacher full time. Oh yeah. But she's trying to get to that point where she can be a professional dungeon master, because she's like, that would be my dream job kind of thing, which makes sense. And I know there's a part of the community, and I don't know if I'll piss off some people watching or listening to this, but there's a large segment of the population of tabletop role-playing game players and what have you, that when they hear a professional dungeon master who charges, and like it's like this, they can't believe it happens.
I'll never sell out.
And I'm like, it's dungeon masters and game masters, it's a lot of work. I see all the work she puts into it, and she's good at what she does. Like, she's really, really good at it. And I'm like, every game needs, if let's say if we lived in the same location and it was like me, you, and two other people, and we didn't know, we didn't want to be dungeon masters. We're like, well, we got to find one, and so I have no problem with dungeon masters charging, for that skill set. We pay people to mow our lawn. We pay people to do all kinds of things. So, not to go off on that tangent, but, I think I think it's a viable business opportunity, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And if anybody is interested, or if you're interested, Ron, in learning more about professional dungeon masters, in episode 39 of the CTG, we actually had David Northeast, who lives out in the UK. He is a professional DM. That's what he does. And a lot of times he will, he has that struggle of like, what is my value? As somebody who's storytelling and putting everything together and purchasing different programs, especially online, if you want like the music and the virtual tabletop, like he's the one who's providing a lot of those subscription services so that you can have that full immersive experience. So
I'll have to send that to her, because I think that would be a great episode. I'll listen to that too. That's awesome. But
you can just tell her she's worth it. She's worth every dime, and she should keep doing what she's doing. I believe it. There are people. I used to be in that camp. Like, why would I pay somebody to do something that I enjoy and that I can do myself? And the real question you have to ask is, do I have the time to do it? And am I enjoying it? If that's true, then go ahead and do it yourself. But if you need somebody to help you out with all that other stuff, a pro GM would be a perfect solution.
Yeah, I think so. And like, for instance, and if there is someone like you just said, Clint, is that if there's someone out there and you love the prep, you love being a dungeon master, you love being that game master who kind of crafts the story and, and really enjoy that dynamic, then definitely, find your group and go for it. But, for me in the Kennedy Krieger group, it's great for me because I call it D&D light, because I don't follow all the rules. It would get way too complex for me and for them. So it's D&D light, but I'm having fun. But if I had to do what a dungeon master does and learn all of that, I was like, I feel like I probably would be charging. I know that sounds like a capitalist, mindset, but I'm like, the amount of work a good DM puts into it to make it immersive, I mean, that's something else.
Yeah, it's a mind shift for sure in the hobby.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Thinking about that, planning these sessions, what's a typical game session like with your specific group that we've been referencing several times? Like, what is it like? How do you set the tone? How do you make it so that everyone feels comfortable regardless of where they are on that spectrum?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I'll be completely honest with you. I wasn't quite sure how to start because, I don't have experience with neurodivergent individuals. Obviously at Panera, I'm there every day and they came every day. So I got to know them as friends. So I, was comfortable and understood them from that standpoint. But in terms of teaching them a game, which can be extremely complex, I was like, where do I start? So I actually went to AI of all places. And I was like, I just had a conversation. I use AI probably more than I probably should in my life. But anyway, so I was talking to the AI between ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, and just asking about different things. And I was like, how do they create a character? So let's just start there. How do we create a character when they got a role, they got a, there's all the classes and all these other types of things and the weapons, and it came up with this genius concept, which was create little cards of all of the classes, let's say. So from Ranger, Bard, what have you. And there was these little cards that I had AI create and I cut them out. and it had, the symbol of like a ranger. And then it said, choose this if you like. And it gave, kind of if you were, if you liked, bows and arrows and like simple things that they could understand and that I could teach them at the same time. And then we were like, okay, so what about strength? So what I did was it said to create, I can't remember how many, not traits, but, like strength and charisma. I can't remember how many there are, but like 8, maybe something like that. And so print 8 cards and have different numbers on them. And then the numbers had to add up to a certain amount. And so they could then take the card. So it was more, rather than just a thought-provoking exercise with you're writing down on a piece of paper, they were literally physically dealing with cards that they could interact with and that kind of thing. And they love that. And I've noticed working with them, it's about dice rolls. It's about the battles. It's about, those types of things. And so that's what they enjoy. The first thing they want to do is start getting into a battle and start rolling dice. Like that's the most fun. So rather than even going into, I'm looking over here because I have like the starter pack. I think it's the Dragons of something Isle, like a Shipwreck Isle. I can't remember which one it was, but But anyway, even that one for me, I'm looking through it and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to memorize and it's just, even for me, I was like, I don't have time to like really delve into it. So I worked with AI to create a campaign. And now we're in week, I think 8 or 9 of the campaign. I think it's 9 of the campaign. And, I talk to the AI and I tell it how the last session went. What were some of the issues? Where did things stall out a little bit? And so I've noticed each session gets a little bit better because I'm learning how they learn. And then, I talk to the AI and it gives me some suggestions and I go back out there and we test some things. So like a good example today was I wanted 2 people are going to be missing. So it's just a group of 2 today. And so I wanted a little easier adventure. And the AI was like, well, how about if we do puzzles and challenges? And I'm like, that's good for all of them together, but not with the 2 individuals who are here. These 2 really like the dice roll. They like the dice. They like the battles. They like seeing I create little tokens versus like actual miniatures. I print out little round tokens and they like to see the monsters on the tokens and everything else. And so that's kind of how I created today's campaign. It was based on talking to an AI, understanding, these individuals and kind of how they've grown in the game as we've gone along. So long story short, that's kind of how I've developed this. I think the next thing, at knowing what I know about these guys, I think what I'm going to do next time, once we're finished this campaign, I'm actually probably going to go with one of the D&D board games. Like there's the Drist board game. There's a few board games that are out there that are D&D specific, but it's more, you're rolling. It's more kind of fast-paced action. It takes less of the storytelling out because I've noticed they like the stories, but it's not really what gets them, excited about things. So that's probably where I'm going to go next.
As I'm listening, Ron, some things that I heard, just to summarize it for the listeners, you use manipulatives, right? You're using physical things for them to be able to move around, to take some very complex, maybe like abstract concepts and make them more solid. So you mentioned, for the cards, I think that's genius. You took story functions of the character archetypes. Like if I'm going to be a rogue, I'm going to be shooting a lot of bow and arrows. There's a lot of arrows that are going to be zinging past. And so you're taking like, what is this person going to be doing if they choose this type of class?
Yep.
And you made it a physical choice for them to be able to pluck. I think that's awesome. The tokens, little tip to everybody, when I do, so I also print out the tokens. I usually just use printer paper, and then I like to stick mine on furniture sliders. So if you find like 1 inch, 1 inch by 1 inch little felt furniture sliders happen to make really good tokens.
Can I show you real quick?
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Go ahead.
Let me show you real quick. Let's see. Here. Nope, not there. Let's see. Oh, here it is.
Going on a field trip.
Seatbelts, everyone!
I know, right? Why does this ever happen in a podcast?
Yeah.
All right, so let me see. Where's the... All right, so this is one of their characters. Let's see if I can get...
There we
That's
go.
That's kind of what I do. It's a 1 inch. I print it out on Avery printer paper. which
Nice.
is like 2-inch, 2-inch adhesives. And then what I do is I went to Home Depot and I'm sorry, Amazon, and I got these wooden discs.
Oh,
And I just take
perfect.
the little wooden disc, slap it on, and so that's kind of how I do it. And they love it. It's a cool little thing. So yeah.
Does it have a washer on the bottom? I saw like a little metal circle.
Yeah, that was a washer. I took those off. I wanted to make them a little heavier, but then it once you do this and you multiply it times like 15 pieces, it gets really heavy. So I don't do that anymore. I figured one is nice because it's got some heft to it.
Yeah.
But like I said, you put 15, 20 in a box, it gets a little heavy. So
Yeah. Well, the furniture sliders can blow away in the wind, so it might be. Maybe I'll upgrade to to wooden discs off of Amazon. That's great.
That's cool. So when you do it, so you do you small like the 1-inch ones. That's what you said.
And the cool thing is you start to build your collection. So people who do miniatures, who like the manipulatives, who like the dungeon pieces that you can get crafted by different companies. They'll start to build their D&D manipulative collection. And what I've learned is now I have most monsters as these little felt tips, and you can get the bigger sliders because, usually a 2x2 would be, I don't know if that's a large creature. There's the different sizes. Most humanoids are medium. And then as you get bigger, you get to like we were talking about the Tarrasque, the legendary creatures, those take up a little bit more. You'd have to have like a giant size furniture.
Get a frisbee for that one.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't even think of the furniture sliders are interesting. I like that idea. And I guess you can get those at Home Depot or anywhere really.
Yeah, it was very inexpensive and I got them in a bag. I think the hardest part was I couldn't get like tons of the smaller sizes because you typically use the medium-sized creatures 1 inch by 1 inch more often. But anyway, that's the DIY version. For those of you guys who are like, I don't want to be cutting stuff out, just go online.
That's good. And that's why I got stickers, because at first I was like cutting them out and like glue stick. And I was like, this is taking way too long. So now I just print out the stickers and slap them on. And then there's the other trick, which is my friend Jay, what she does is she's got you probably have seen it. It's paper folded. And then in the middle, she puts a penny. She like tapes a penny in the middle. So it's like a heavier little thing. Yeah. And it's, that's what I did for my first one, but it still took a while to like cut out, fold it, put the penny in and stuff like that. So,
and in transport, I could see myself just squishing that into oblivion.
Yes. Exactly. So, yeah.
Cool. So we're using manipulatives. We're trying to make abstract more physical, take out, still have storytelling, but not make it the main focus. I love all of these tips, and I guess the other thing I wanted to talk about was in what ways do you see that clear rules in D&D having this is what you do in this situation. How does that help these individuals or anybody be able to navigate in social interaction? So the turn taking, the problem solving, the puzzle solving, like how do the rules assist in your group?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because one of the things that I had to do is to make sure that, and I think all dungeon masters do this, and some of them do it, and I do it on the fly, and I think a lot of them may plan it. You have to know, it's like anything else in life. If you're going to give a presentation, you have to know your audience, right?
Yeah.
This is the same thing. If you're a dungeon master, you have to know your audience. If you're playing with a bunch of people who've never played before, your approach is going to be completely different than if you're playing with group that's been playing for 10 years and they kind of know the rules inside and out. So, with that said, with this group of individuals, what I did was there are certain rules that we abide by and kind of the basics. And I kind of just did it by the fly. I didn't like look up anything. I didn't ask AI. I just thought of, what are some of the things that they would be able to really understand and grasp immediately, and stuff like armor class, like the basic stuff. There's armor class, and there's, when you're trying to, and I've also introduced rules as we've gone along. Like for instance, I never did like saving throws in the beginning. And then I slowly introduced saving throws. So if someone wanted to do an investigation, you're like, well, I'm going to check out the altar. And it's like, okay, well, what I want you to do is look on your sheet and look at, investigation. And what does that say? And kind of thing. And so what I would do, it's like, okay, then you got to roll. And then, so it's like this slow buildup of the rules. When I first started, it was pretty much just, the bases, armor class, hit points. I didn't even do strength checks. It was a very basic roll kind of thing. And now we're at the point where they understand what saving throws are. Not all of them. I don't do it. Like, I listen to a lot of D&D podcasts now. I've kind of put my business podcasts on the side. Now I'm listening to, I think it's called Dice Shame and Roll the Bones, or those are awesome podcasts. And anyway, nothing that complex where it's like every single thing they do, there's a saving throw or a check of some type or whatever it might be. And they've also learned about, if they have a strength, there's a strength modifier. And what does that mean? So it's kind of evolved from the simple, taking little tokens, which we still use, but in terms of using those cards and, trying to figure that out and introducing rules slowly to them building up to where they are now, which is they understand the game at a more complex level. And what's really cool is introducing other things like puzzles, because I did this one puzzle where, do you remember in Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade? Do you remember? Did you ever see that movie?
That's the best one.
That's
my
the best
favorite
one by far.
Sean Connery may be a part of that. I don't know, but
Junior.
I know that was probably in my top 10 movies. I mean, that was a really good movie. And the last scene where he had to pick the cup, and there are all these jeweled cups, and he picked the one that was the most simple, which would be, from, the son of a carpenter would have a simple cup.
You have chosen wisely.
Well, I did something similar for them, which was they had to pick a seed, and all the other ones were, gold and silver and platinum, and they shined and they had a certain hum to them when you held them. And then there was just one that just felt like an acorn. And the tip was, which one brings life? And of course, when they first started, they were like, I want to do the gold one. And so the gold one, and the punishment was, if they got it wrong, all of them lost 10 hit points. So I said, a blast of energy comes forth, and you all of a sudden, you didn't get hurt, but you feel just more tired.
You chose poorly.
And each of you reduce your hit points by 10. And then they made the wrong choice again. And then I said, and then you kind of have to, like, the character who was the NPC who was telling them what they had to do, he was like, I will give you one more chance. And in this time, remember which one gives life. And the one kid was like, oh, I got it. It's the acorn. It's the only one that actually gives life. And so it's like those moments that really, it's like it sparks that creativity. You could tell that they were all then excited by it. And so it was really cool. So I think that that's kind of how I get the game going, from its very simplistic roots to kind of where we are now. So I think that that's, kind of cool, which is why we've all been at that table where, something's on the line. Even a one shot I was in, something was on the line, and you need to roll something good. You need to, or something bad's going to happen. And that one person rolls a nat 20, and you give the high five across the table. Everyone cheers. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, you just can't beat that. Stupid cell phone's not going to give you that.
I have 3 thoughts from what you were sharing. Your progressive scaffolding. In the learning world, you are starting small, building on their knowledge of the game, expanding as they move forward. It is genius. That's awesome. The other thing is you're stealing like an artist. I don't know if you ever read that book, but
I haven't. I should. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Taking from Indiana. I mean, that's exactly it. Like these movies and these books. Mm-hmm. There's a reason they resonate with us. It's because there's a clear problem that needs to be solved. And the progression of solving that problem is what makes it exciting for us to live in the story. So, yeah. And the third movie is the best. Totally. I just saw the knight being like, you chose poorly.
That was the best part. You chose poorly. Yeah.
Phenomenal. And then the other part, this leads into another question.
Sure.
Something on the line, taking risks. Mm-hmm. So in the real world, it's hard to step out and take risks, right? Because it feels like the consequences, if poorly chosen, are not quite as desirable, and they may feel more long lasting. But games, like we mentioned with tabletop therapy, allow us to explore things that we may not be able to explore. Yeah. Go on adventures that we never would go on. When are you going to meet a giant legendary red dragon in the real world? You wouldn't. And so that risk taking idea, my question is, like, have you noticed that the participants in your games are taking more risk, or have they learned, like, are they more cautious? Are they more bold? Or how do they balance that risk taking feeling?
Yeah, it's funny because like in the real world, I don't know. But and I think that I'm under the philosophy like these games truly can change your life. And I'll talk about that a little later. But I truly think that if you adopt some of the teachings and like the different classes have different strengths and weaknesses, and and I think that you could learn from these games. And actually, if you did, it talks about risk taking and the consequences too. I mean, consequences are a big part of making a decision, and if you make a decision in D&D, it could result in the death of your character or someone else, kind of thing. And so in the real life, I'm not sure. But I know in the game it has, because in the beginning they were very cautious about things, and they've noticed it's one of those things. How do I say it? They were cautious because they weren't quite sure what the game was going to do. They didn't understand kind of like where the game was going to be or what the consequences were going to be. But once they start to understand the consequences, like I'm battling a monster, and if I do this, then that's going to happen. So the next time I want to do that, I probably shouldn't do it that way. And so they are learning as they're going along the process of what it's like to be the character that they're in. And they don't do the role play. They don't do the kind of whole role play thing. It's more or less, my character is doing this. But still, even then, they went from being very cautious to then kind of like, okay, I'm going to try doing something. Let's say if it's, opening a chest, here's a good example. They defeated, I think it was 2 gnolls, and there was a chest, a treasure chest there. And they go up to it, and the one guy was like, I'm just going to open it up. And the other guy who never played D&D before, he's like, don't do it. It could be a mimic kind of thing. And so right away they were like, oh, because if it were, and of course on the spot, what did I do? I made it a mimic just because it was more fun that way. But it kind of showed that the one guy just wanted to go up and do it, and the other one was like, no, that could be a mimic. And I guess by looking at the books that I gave them, they probably saw it and they thought it was cool. But yeah, they've kind of gotten to that place where they're experimenting more, and they understand that certain things in the game, if you do them, they could have consequences. And if I do, there's another puzzle that we're going to be we're going to do today in the campaign.
Puzzles.
And I guarantee they're going to approach it differently because of the puzzle that we had with the acorn and the other seeds there. So, it's cool watching these guys learn as they're going along, because, like anything else, if you're DMing a brand new group of individuals, it's cool to watch them get excited by the game and learn from the game, and to, learn as they progress as a character. So it's kind of cool.
They're building confidence. They're building caution. They're finding a balance between caution and confidence. And social skills. So, I mean, that goes beyond, right? We do learn from these games, and we can bring all this stuff into all of it. I guess I love the stories that you're telling, right? The mimic, two of the books that have changed the way that I game master. So the first one is The Lazy Dungeon Master, and there's a subsequent one called Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master by Mike Shea.
I haven't heard of those two.
Phenomenal. And if you want to audiobook them, they're on Audible, so you can listen to them. I actually like having the physical copy because it just has such a wealth of, if I could boil it down into like one lesson, it's that it doesn't become real until the players make it real. And you can do a lot of planning, but sometimes what they come up with on their own is way better than anything that you could have came up with, and you can lean into it, like that idea with the mimic. You're just like, oh yeah, of course. And then they're like, oh, you knew it was going to be a mimic, and you're like, no, actually I didn't. You guys came up with that. So that's it's one. True. The other is Robin D. Law's Law of Good Game Mastering. So Robin D. Laws, he works for, or is at least a consultant for Peregrine Press. He came up with games like the Yellow King role-playing game. He came up with the Gumshoes. role-playing system. So outside the realm of D&D, but that particular book, Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastering, goes into what kind of players are you playing with?
Okay.
And you're already thinking that. Like, I'm playing with two people today who love the dice rolling and love to kick butt. Like, they want to have a battle.
Yep.
You know, and that's one of the player archetypes that he has in his book is like the butt kicker.
Interesting.
And there's like quizzes people have made, you know, to try to like quizify his teachings in that book. But overall, like just knowing your players, knowing what they like, and planning just enough to make it interesting so that they can come up with the rest of the world is genius. Yeah. Now, you were talking before we started about a quiz that you are developing, a kind of survey of such, and you've alluded to it a couple of times, like a rogue has a certain personality type. Can you tell me a little bit about that quiz and what you're thinking about it and where it's going?
I would say, thanks for bringing that up, because I think it's something I've become really passionate about. And it started with, to answer the question, yes, I created a quiz that for my Dungeon Noob channel. The channel is basically about not how to play. It's not about mechanics. It's not about, I'm a noob to this, so I am no one to talk about strategies to be a DM. I mean, I just wouldn't do that. It's disingenuous. So what I do is talk about the D&D lifestyle. I've got videos coming out about, the coolest dice that are out there, the most expensive dice, how to find a group. What do you need to play? Those kinds of things. And part of the channel also, I want to make it, what can you learn? And this is kind of a thread that has come through this conversation we've had, is how can you develop and learn from tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, etc. So I got to thinking, like, how is there something I can give my audience, which right now it's small, it's like 2,000 subscribers, but it's growing. What can I give them that would not just be something fun, but also kind of help them in life? I know that's kind of an audacious goal to have, but as I was thinking about it, I ran into some research that talks about Dungeons and Dragons classes. So from Bard to Ranger to Fighter, Barbarian, Artificer, the whole bit. All of those you could take those classes and map those to personality archetypes. So, what class are you in real life? So it's one thing to say in the game, let's say I'm a Bard, but in real life, based on your personality, what are you? And so I wanted to kind of share that because I think it's something I'm passionate about. Like, for instance, the fighter, like there's something called a core identity. And I'm reading right here. It says, for the fighter, the core identity of a fighter based on this research and other things I found was you're a doer, a master of your chosen craft. You believe that success is not a matter of luck, talk, or raw talent, but of relentless discipline, practice, preparation. So I created a quiz that it's a 12-question quiz that kind of hones what class you might be. And when you take it, you'll get the results. And the results aren't just, hey, congratulations, Clint, you're a barbarian. You actually get a PDF that tells you what you are, what the class is based on your personality type, what your strengths are, what your superpower is, and then, how you can apply that to your life. And also, what are your weaknesses? What are those blind spots? Because if you have the barbarian archetype, it means that you're more, focused on, the raw energy that you might have, the impulsive types of things. You're the person who, I'm trying to think of you shoot first, ask questions later, that cliche. And one of there's a lot of strengths to that, but there's a lot of weaknesses built into that as well. So the personality, PDF that you get not just tells you what class you are, but it also talks about, how you can take that class, embrace it, and then hopefully apply it to your life and make your life better, either at work or school or at home, relationships, or just, however you wanted to apply it. So that's kind of what I've built. And, I'm sure that if you could probably put the link down in the description or down below.
You bet. Shoot that quiz link over, and anybody who's listening right now will be able to take Ron's quiz for sure once it's up and running.
Yeah, I'm by the time this goes live, it probably will be ready. In fact, I'm going to make sure it's ready. And
Nice.
you know, I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I've taken the quiz myself, and I was like, I am this person. I turned out to be a ranger. I'm kind of a loner. I prefer a lot of downtime. Like it's like I'm not a social extrovert. I'm not going to go out and like try to do things with, you know, I kind of more or less like I like to withdraw. That's just the way I am. And, you know, having me time is, you know, critical. And that's a superpower, but it's also, there's a lot of weaknesses built in too, because you could become so withdrawn that, you know, you miss out on all the things that life has to offer. So it kind of, even me taking the quiz, I was like, yeah, I kind of, you know, I need to do certain things to try to, you know, to steer myself in a direction if I want to become successful at X, Y, and Z. So yeah.
Strengths and weaknesses or challenges to the same class. That's really awesome. Yeah, I'm totally going to take the quiz and let everybody know what I am too.
I might, if you don't mind, Clint. What I might do is I'll send you so you can test it. If you want to test it, I'd be happy to send it to you.
Let me test it as many. I love that stuff. I remember I took one for Harry Potter way back when.
Yeah.
Oh, I've taken so many Harry Potter quizzes. Usually I was a Slytherin, and then I ended up being a Gryffindor, and then I was a mixture between Ravenclaw and Slytherin. Okay. I was like a Slitherdor. I don't even know what they call it.
Gryffindor!
It's funny because none of these, you know, none of these quizzes, like my quiz or the ones that you've taken, and I've taken those too, none of these are like scientifically valid quizzes at all. But, you know, they are, I would say, you know, they're good enough to get you in the right direction. So if you really wanted to, you know, take a look at, you know, whether you're, you know, I don't know if the one that you took was like, you know, you're a Slytherin, so that means here are your strengths, here are your weaknesses. But if it did, evil. Yeah, that's right. It's like you're evil, and you know, it's yeah. But yeah, I think those are just, they're fun to take. Everyone likes to take them. And then if it's got something beneficial to you, then more power to it. So yeah, they're fun. I like them.
Yeah, it allows us to reflect. And I think anytime you were mentioning about being on technology earlier and just how we're always so distracted, anytime we can slow down and reflect on ourselves, our lives, and the people around us, even if it's a quiz about what class we are with D&D, like that can only be good, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing I love about like the whole, you know, tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons and all of that is the fact that it really can help you. And like we were talking about before, and this is kind of a thread that's kind of unexpectedly come up. Like I was talking about the guy who, you know, Matt Mercer saw that he was just on the verge of suicide and D&D helped him. It might be an extreme case, but there are a lot of cases where if you really look, there are so many, like you mentioned before, that TT RPGs are being used in therapy now. So it's like, there's a lot to be gained than just, it's fun, but there's a lot of stuff that can come out of it that could really, at least for me anyway, I think it could help you in your life.
Yeah, episode 42, I talked with Martin Lloyd. He also, I think, originally was from the UK. I think he lives in the Netherlands now, but he came up with a game called Amazing Tales. And it really caters to that younger audience where D&D might feel really complex. I played it with my little girls actually, and they loved it. I think they made up like 2 fairies that went and rescued an owl baby, a little owlet.
Awesome.
Yeah, and they came up with most of it. Rarely did I come up with anything in that game, but he's had therapists reach out to him and say, "This is phenomenal for my type of counseling that I do." So yeah, it's a real deal.
And to kind of piggyback on that, my friend Jay, who does that, you know, pro dungeon master thing. It's interesting because she was saying that the moment like these, most of the time right now, most of our clients are parents, you know, coming, you know, hiring her to do D&D for their kids or their kids and the friends and that kind of thing. And she always says, she's like, they drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh no! Oh yeah!
She's like, because the parents come to me, the kids have a blast, and the parents come to me and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe for 3 hours straight, not one time did they look at their phones. You know what I mean? And in today's society, that's everything, right? It's like, if you can get kids to do that and be imaginative, like you said, with your daughters, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. And for reference, at this time, my daughters are 6 and 4.
Okay,
so very little. And I remember trying to get them into doing D&D when they were younger. When my oldest son, he's 8, like having him try to do it. it just got too much, and they started tuning out.
Yes.
Because even just a simple saving modifier, on a strength modifier or something like that, like that's too much. Less is more with the littles, but
yes, yes, it is.
Wrapping this all together.
Sure.
I do this on every single episode, and people are probably like, why is he talking about this again? But there's an activity that Eric Newsom from NPR News, he's not NPR anymore. He has his own deal. He wrote a book about podcasting, Make Noise. And in that book, he talked about creating a 10-word phrase using the economy of words. So it can't be more than 10. It can't be less than 10, but exactly 10 words to help our listener remember something about what we talked about today, whether it's related to autism, the spectrum, neurodivergency with D&D, just what do you want people to remember?
I would say, that's a good question. Difficult question too, even though we were pretty focused. We went a little outside, but we were pretty focused. I would say, if anything, let me think about that.
We got like a B+.
Oh yeah. Oh, focus. Yes. I think focus we did pretty well. B+ for sure. I would say that the first thing that popped in my head is probably too cheesy, but it's the first thing that popped in my head. So I'll just say it, and maybe I can modify it later. But D&D, or let's just say tabletop role-playing games, can change your life. I think that they can. And I'll even maybe D&D role-playing games can change someone's life, kind of thing. Because like we've talked about, I think there's more to it than just people around a table playing a game. I think with these games, I think they're more imaginative than most other games. I think they're more, of course, I'm biased, you're biased, kind of thing. But from what I've done and the research that I've done on like the class quiz, things that I've seen online, the things that you talk about when you were talking about, Clint, about, the in therapy, truly these games can truly help improve your life and the life of someone that you care about. So I would say that. I would say, tabletop role-playing games can change your or someone else's life. So
100% agree. If I was a tattoo kind of man, that would be something I would put around the old bicep.
Put a D20 and then right underneath it.
Yeah, D&D can change your life.
And thank God, Mean Gene, I got my pump back, man. The pythons are ready. The largest arms in the world.
Ron, thank you for joining. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, this was fun, Clint. I appreciate it.
I guess the last thing I want the listener to know, how can they connect with you and your work? What you're doing? How can they stay connected to it? Where would you send them?
So right now, everything is YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and just search Dungeon Noob, one word, NOOB, I think it's youtube.com/@Dungeon Noob. And then if you do that, you'll find everything. My email address is directly ron@dungeonnoob.com if you wanted to kind of do it that way. But yeah, everything over on YouTube.
Awesome. I will make sure that's all in the show notes. For those of you who are a part of the Better Yourself, Better Your Game newsletter, I popped Ron into the newsletter, and he'll be in the next newsletter for sure, because this is great. Well, Ron, thank you. Enjoy all of your games. I hope you find that dream group that you're waiting for.
Me too. I hope you do too.
It'll come. And if not, I'll just be that old guy that's in all the, the game shops running games for free. So
yeah.
Thanks again, Ron. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Clint. Take care.
Tabletop role-playing games can change someone's life, maybe yours. Click on the link in the show notes to check out Ron's 13-question quiz, What D&D class are you in real life?
This is real life, kid.
You can uncover your unique strengths and also a simple framework for how to grow in games and in real life. I took the quiz and came out as a cleric.
Greetings, cleric.
Someone with faith, strong ideals, and a desire to help others. It pretty much had me pegged. Please hit like or subscribe if you enjoyed what you heard today. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, go ahead and give a 5-star review to the CTG. And may you keep having fun as you continue to have a great time with friends and tell amazing stories through tabletop role-playing.